I'm listening to a podcast, Black Lodge Trivia Night. I've never heard so many game aspirations in my life.
All right, welcome back to Black Lodge Trivia Night. This is Art, and we are once again doing a hostile solo session, which means we're down a Matt and a Patrick. They are... They're recording a Disclosure Day spoiler cast for their other podcast, Matt and Patrick Go to the Movies. I like movies. I have no interest in Disclosure Day, so alas, I think I'm okay with it. Except for the fact that this is obviously... this is always more fun to do with the guys than on my own. But it is good, though, to get back to Hostile Solo. It's been a while. It says like 49 days on the side there. It didn't seem like it's been that long, but it's been that long. My memory's a little hazy. I tried to do a little research. This is going to be coming in super hot. This is all happening kind of short notice, so I'm not sure I was able to do the 2% of prep I normally do to get ready for this. But one thing that's changed in the interim, it might not be obvious, but now I'm on version 14 of Foundry. As I've said a million times before, the 2D6 Foundry module is always top-notch and like right there with the latest. So since that's what we're using to run this this hostile thing, we're able to actually update to the latest. It's not the latest at the time of this recording. Not a ton of noticeable differences for me, but some of the little things that I wanted to point out. Like you go to these tabs and what you've always been able to do is you've always been able to pop them out, but one thing they've built into it now is detach window. So you don't need pop out or pop out resizer anymore. That's now built into the functionality of the whole thing. So I can just detach the windows that show up there. Okay, yeah. But yeah, so if you remember last time, and I barely do, we had some moments with the crew. There was a lot of bookkeeping. We built out the Lady Luck, which is the whole point of this mission. It was a sort of a rescue / salvage of the Lady Luck. We arrived at the Lady Luck. There was an automated distress signal, no immediate signs of life. Internal sensor sweep indicates problem with the air recyclers. Repair target of 7 for the air recyclers, which means it was a slightly below average repair. Why wasn't it done? Part of the automated SOS code is for a hijack situation. Tom, the captain, Dell, the android, and May, the security officer, recognized the code. That was sort of the broad strokes. I'm gonna detach the shit out of this window and move it over here. Look at that progress. Let's bring up the Lady Luck just so we can see. So we built out. This probably doesn't need to be there, way over there, so ignore that. So we built out the Lady Luck. We have that ready to go. And I think part of the description of the ship was that there was a large, obvious sign of damage to the exterior hull of the ship, and it's got it in sort of an odd rotation, which is actually not that different than what was going on, now that I think about it, with the other ship that we started with the rescue mission on, with the sabotaging engineer or whatever. So I'm just repeating myself, I guess. So we have, what I'm going to start doing, I'm going to start bringing out the crew, just to, who knows what's going to be what, but just, again, I should keep everybody on these maps. Not sure what was up with that. Just to have them ready to go. Usually I shouldn't put people on the bottom because that's where my dumb face ends up somewhere. So I should keep that. Did we get Olivia? We did. Did we get Tom? We did not. And let's get May. Okay, so we've got the crew. Yeah. Oh, yeah. So there's some obvious damage to the external part of the ship. It's in a bit of a rotation. No signs of life. But at the same time, though, we also had a few moments with the crew where May was a little skeptical of Tom. He seemed a little off, like maybe couldn't be trusted because there's been some static, some beef with JM, and if you remember, Tom actually started to suffocate JM when JM was unconscious on a medbay table. So, given that, May's like, okay, let me just check the security log tapes just to make sure like I didn't miss something or see if Tom's acting weird. She tried to get into the tapes. She couldn't do it. She was talking to Dell and like, hey Dell, do you mind if I check the tapes? And he was kind of like, that's highly irregular, and he sort of blocked her. He checked the tapes afterwards, like, I wonder why she wanted to check the tapes. And he saw that Tom went full like psycho killer on JM for a hot second before he sort of snapped back to reality. I was like, what am I doing? Then I think Olivia was sort of watching that from an elevator shaft and is like, hey, like everybody's checking the security tapes. And Tom's like, oh, I wonder oh shit, I did do that, didn't I? So Tom went into the security tapes, and he actually, with a successful roll, managed to scrub the logs of what he did and actually not leave really any digital fingerprint of what he did. So, So I'm not exactly sure what that's going to mean, but it basically means that, the evidence has been erased for the time being. And it's not going to be clear who did it. So that's kind of where we left off. And so that's, I apologize for the long introduction, but, it's been a little while. So it's half for my recollection as it is to get everybody caught up on the story. So with that, what do we do? Let's go to... Doesn't really matter where this... Let's go to the galley. So it's sort of like let's get a status update here, and let's do it on the bridge. Let's have a status update. Doc Brown might not be there, but most people, the engineer wouldn't be there either. The tag along. But so like the main crew, Doc Brown would be there. Why not? She's part of the crew. So they're all sitting around, and okay, so like, status update, is it Olivia? Who's on sensors? Is it Dell? It might be Dell. He's on computer electronics. Could be, no, yeah, Dell's sensor operator right there. Okay. So yeah, let's just say like we're stepping as like, okay, like Dell, give me a sensor sweep. And he's like, that's the sound effects work you come to Black Lodge Trivia Night for. You're welcome. So he gets the readings. Like, look, there's no obvious signs of life. Clearly, there's an explosion, evidence of an explosion on the outer hull. We got a rotation going, and we've got the automated SOS signal. And he holds back all the details. Like, does he know, was he one of the ones that would know? I think I said he was one of the ones that would know that Tom, Dell, and May, yeah. They're recognizing the code, but maybe they're like, Dell doesn't say anything, and May sort of notices that. Because again, there's a lot of like, Tom has asked Olivia to sort of keep an eye on everybody and take notes. And it's just some real, and like May doesn't trust Tom. So May notices that Dell doesn't mention the quiet part out loud. And then also specifically notices that Tom doesn't bring it up either. And so again, Tom, the whole thing with Tom is that he's a Nepo baby and he's trying to prove that he actually deserves his command when he clearly doesn't, at least not yet. So JM's kind of, sitting there at the helm. And he's like, permission to give my thoughts, Captain. He's not quite snide, but he is sort of playing into it a little bit, And Tom's like, yeah, Jam, sure. And Jam's like, look, We're here to rescue or salvage. It's clearly not a rescue. You know, let's call this in. You know, we can stand by, you know, we'll keep watch, you know, make sure it doesn't get claimed by like a rogue salvage operation, like, you know, the other guys that were here in the system that we rescued. And, you know, let's just play it safe. We don't have, you know, a lot of fuel to play around with. Let's just play it safe, hang in there, live off our stores, and wait for, you know, trying to remember the setting. What's the conglomerates? And let's just wait for Leyland Okuda. I'm gonna attach shit out of that window too. It's such a dumb thing, but like when this little functionality gets built in, it really it's really nice touches to see, like, the, you know, because there's so much under the hood stuff getting done, and there's so much this and improvements to the 3D that, and I appreciate but can't appreciate all those technical things, but like the things that are like, yeah, like build-in detaching windows, that's great. Like, again, in my mind, dice tray and 3D dice, like, that should also be part of the functionality. And maybe someday it will be. I'll be curious to see how it's implemented, but yeah, like there should just be like core things that every time I show up to Foundry, I really like the idea of knowing it's going to be there, especially because of how I use it, recording and stuff like that. Anyway, it's neither here nor there. So yeah, so JM's like, look, man, let's just play it safe. We've taken risks with the other ship boarding that because we had to. You know, we saved some people. One turned out to be crazy. There was sabotage. We needed to repair the ship. We took risks we had to take. It almost cost Doc Brown her life. Let's not do that anymore. And Tom is looking at it, and you know, it's one of those things where it's almost like begrudgingly, he's like, yeah, you know, yeah, like a lot of shit's gone down on this little trip here, and maybe we've pushed our luck as far as we're able to push our luck, and maybe we shouldn't be taking any more risks. It's like, okay, well, let's and then with that, Del, Del's like, you know, Captain, may I speak to you in the galley, please? Or, you know, may I speak to you like outside the bridge? Maybe they don't have to go all the way to the galley, but it's like, hey, do you have a second? And there's a little bit of formality there because I think Del has caught on to the fact that Tom's ego can be stroked a little bit. So he's like, you know, Captain, let's step outside. So they step outside. And you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to stay in the bridge. So they step outside. Get rid of the engineer. So they step outside, and again, Adea starts looking around nervously because you know, she was unceremoniously benched during a life support crisis. You know, she's already been sidelined. She's terrified of dying. Olivia, I think, is paranoid. Yeah, she's paranoid. So she's like, you know, she was on Team Tom, but she's not comfortable with the fact that the corporate android is out in the hall speaking with the captain. May thinks this is all, you know, she's about to get up and go into the hall. She's like, no, we don't keep shit from each other. Like, this is, you know, everybody needs to be on board, but especially me as the security op leader. So JM is like, just shakes his head. And he's like, man, there's just more bullshittery going on here. And I like just further proof that Tom does not have a handle on what's going on. And so, and Doc Brown, you know, optimistic and determined. You know, after a little while of just everybody sitting in silence, she looks around and she's like, whatever they're doing is not good. So usually she's like optimistic, but the fact that she broke the other way, everybody sort of like, you know, cracks a smile, lets out a little laugh. It sort of breaks the tension in the room. And then like a moment later, Tom and Dell come back in. And so as they walk in, like, okay, so, you know, Olivia, if you could give me like, you know, a plot to, I think she's like the nav officer, right? Navigator. She's like, yeah, if you could plot like a course to get close, match rotations, you know, figure out what we need to do. We're going to be going on board that ship. And he's like, JM, you know, coordinate with Olivia, you know, punch that in and you know, line us up. And we're going to try and soft lock like we did with the other one and see if we can either stabilize the rotation. Let's figure out what we can do, but we're going to try and get on board that ship safely. And JM is just like, oh my God, like, what are we doing? And May's like, sir, like, I don't think this is a great idea. It's like, May, this is part of our mandate. And JM spins in the chair. Is like, no, actually, it's really not. And Tom's like, it's part of our mandate. We're going to get on board. We're going to go check out the ship, all right? That's what we're here to do. So let's do that. If we're lucky, maybe the sensors are wrong, there's a survivor, and we help somebody. If not, let's get on board the ship. And, you know, just make sure we do a once-over for anything that needs to be once-overed. And then we can figure out what to do from there as far as salvage. And Jam's like, okay. All right, Olivia, if you want to get me set up with a path, we'll get us in there. And Olivia, again, is like, I mean, yes, sure. And then she's turning back to Tom, and Tom just sort of closes his eyes a little bit and gives her a quick nod, like, no, it's good. Don't. I got you. And she's like, oh, okay, but I still don't feel, I don't feel reassured. And Adea is just like, Tom, what are we doing? And Tom's like, first of all, it's Captain. And with that, Adea's like, oh shit. Okay, this is turning into something weird. And Adea's like, sure, Captain, like, what are we doing? Again, remember, she's terrified of dying out here. The ways that she's seen people die in space, just, that's not how she wants to go. And he's like, Captain, what are we doing? And he's like, look, you gotta trust me on this. We're gonna get over there. We're gonna get Dell on board. We're gonna, you know, check everything over. Like I said, we're gonna do a once over. And then once we know what's going on, we'll figure it out. And Dea is sort of like, I'll go prep the suits, but sort of like in a really upset, trying not to sound upset, but upset. And she storms off the bridge to go, you know, fine, I'll prep the suits. You know, so that's where she goes. And Doc Brown's like, okay, I'll set up, you know, I'll get medbay set up for in case of any emergencies. So she takes off, you know, she's going to get, you know, like emergency kits prepped and stuff ready to go in case, you know, somebody comes in hot, needing a doctor. So let's start doing some rolls. So we got May sort of steps back, but she doesn't leave. And she just kind of eyes from the back of the room. You know, she's just watching Tom and watching Dell. You know, because clearly something happened in the hallway. Whatever the conversation was, it clearly was important because it's changed. Maybe not changed, but it's dictated these next steps, and they're kind of dangerous. So she's, and at one point she catches Tom like sort of looking over at Dell, and Dell gives him a little nod. And then Tom catches May staring at him, and he just kind of quickly, you know, looks down like, oh shit, like, you know, I got flagged there. So May does not like the look of this at all. And so, yeah, let's start doing some rolls. Now, above the table, I have no idea what their conversation was. And that's partly why I wanted to not go into the hall with them, because I didn't want to like spell things out immediately. I want to sort of play to find out a little bit here, because again, that's part of this. And but I like the idea that the corporate android persuaded the very persuadable and not in charge captain who thinks he's in charge to do something he wasn't thinking he was going to do initially. I like that idea, wherever it may go. So she's going to set up a plot, and I think that's going to be, doesn't matter if it's computer or electronics, so we'll just do computer. Yeah, I'll just give it a roll. Usually, again, we're shooting for an 8. Oh my god. Okay, so she rolls a 2. Which is an effective -4. I forget. I think a 2. Oh man, I don't know if this is a Cepheus thing or if it's a Traveler 2nd edition. The rules are a little different. I don't know if there's actual like full-blown critical failures. Let me check the. One of them I don't think has critical failures. I think that's part of what I'm trying to get at. So let me see if I can bring up Hostile Solo just to double check if there's anything that happens. Again, PDF functionality is built in. You get the breakout boxes. So this is one of the things, like, you know, when I'm recording with the group, I try and keep as much off my screen as possible. So the thing I'm recording is like a clean map with just the dice rolls. And maybe I'll pop in like a combat tracker if I need it. But I try and keep a ton of stuff off screen, and being able to pop it out really helps. And knowing I can pop it out now, no matter what system we're doing, without any like prep ahead of time, really makes this easy. So let's see task resolution. Interpreting success or failure. I think this is what I was looking at. There's so we're at an effective -4. So there isn't like a clean critical failure as far as I know. We've just failed badly. No, and the answer is no, but with an added negative twist. So I think what the added negative twist is, man, which is a -6 or lower, no, and amazingly you fail spectacularly. We didn't get there. And actually, I can sort of imagine things there better than at the -4 to -5. So I think that added negative twist is they're going to lock in a plot, and they're not going to realize it's wrong until it might be too late. So they're definitely going to get a chance to react to it. Here's what we're going to do. So no, and they're not going to realize it's wrong until it's too late. If they're able to correct, if JM's going to be able to do pilot skills, it's going to take a burn of fuel to coordinate. So they're already tight on fuel. That will be the added negative twist. It's going to cost them the fuel to get out of it if they don't crash. So let's do that. So let's see. Okay, so they start their approach. Has she already screwed up? Did she screw up something earlier? I think that's what started some beef between her and JM, as she was starting to do stuff, and JM's like, no, I don't think that's right. Or there was something like that. And she's like, how dare you like call me out like that? And of course, JM's like, well, you took my job back in flight school, and this goes back a long time. So maybe she's so paranoid about, maybe this is also part of it. She's so paranoid about what she just watched with Tom and Dell that she's distracted and, forgets to carry the 1 on her calculations or whatever. So they're coming in, and JM's doing a little bit of piloting. Nine. Okay. An effect of 4. That's actually pretty good. Let me bring that back up. Okay, yes, and you succeed with an extra positive twist. Maybe that cancels out the... Well, man, does it cancel out the... No, I'm not going to cancel out the fuel burn. But I think it's going to make for, like, he's able to... Okay, so yeah, he's like coming in, he's like, Olivia, we're coming in like counter-rotating. I'm going to throw out a bunch of bullshit that I don't know what it means. I feel like we're counter-rotating a little too hot. I think, something's not right with this thing. And she's like, no, the plot's good. And he's like, no, Olivia, like, I'm telling you, like, just eyeballing it, something's off. And she's like, God damn it, like, JM, if you're not going to trust me. And he's like, Olivia, I'm going to go into manual control, and and he starts, tweaking the approach, and it burns the fuel. So let's start by doing that. Let's burn the fuel. I don't know where I put that. Is that on the mission log? I can reattach the window. No, it's on the ship. The ship sheet. Believe, right? It's on the notes. Okay, so we're down to 11 burns. So it's going to burn the fuel. And he's like, no, Olivia, like, we're going to manual, and he starts burning fuel, and he's like, oh, shit, like, I didn't want to have to do this. And Olivia's like, JM, like, he's like, just shut up. Maybe doesn't, not, maybe he is that angry, because he's like, she keeps putting us at risk, and then she keeps, calling me out when I think I'm right. And also, I'm resentful and maybe a little petty when it comes to her because of our past. So maybe he would get that mean. And Olivia's like, who the fuck do you think? And Tom's like, Olivia, hold on, give him a second. We can talk about this in a minute. Jam, just steady us in. And he's like, got it, Captain. And even he's in the moment, like, buying into that captain bit a bit. And Olivia's like, son of a bitch, both of you guys. And so, yeah, Jam burns the fuel, but he does get a really good lineup. And so maybe they're able to soft lock a little quicker. Maybe that's the end. It's like, it takes some fuel, but his approach is perfect. And they're in like a perfect synchronous rotation. And we will skip any, like, we'll skip like like some kind of danger roll when they try and get him. Let's just assume like they've got it. So they're lined up, ready to go in. And, Tom's like, that was good work, JM. And Olivia just stands up and storms out of the bridge. And Tom's like, yeah, Olivia, why don't you go check on the suit? And, he's thrown out some like, hey, yeah, while you're getting up and doing this. And she just slams the door like in mid-sentence. And he's like, oh, Jesus. All right. It's like, okay. Yeah, let's suit up. Let's get ready to go over there. JM, lock us in. He's like, you know what? Let's have Olivia on standby. Let her cool down. Let's have her on standby here on the bridge, and the rest of us will go over. And JM's like, yeah, sure, I can lock that in. So he, hits a few switches, punches a few buttons. The ship now is sort of like in an autopilot, synchronous rotation. And Tom, gets on the intercom, like, Olivia, belay that order about your suit. I'm going to have you stay here on the bridge, and, we'll do that. And she's like, fine, Captain. So everybody gets ready to go over to the ship. Let's start doing that. Olivia's not going to be there. She's going to be back on the... Doc Brown's not going to be there. She's going to be back in medbay in case something happens. So we've got these 5 going over. They soft lock. We'll go with this airlock here. They start in this airlock. We'll say that the damage to the ship is going to be one of the cargo bays. We got cargo 1, 2, and 3. Let's say cargo 3 is damaged. Okay. Okay. All right. Let me roll some inspiration tables. I don't know if I'm going to use them. Let's just get some. Let's get some data. Let's get something going on here. What do I got here? Roll tables. Is it part of here? Inspiration tables. I'm going to draw 3 results just to draw 3 results. Again, might not need any of them, but just to see what we got. Okay, we got ship activation, faction, dying, friendship, control, creation, doomed. Ship catastrophe, economics, colorful worship, okay. Clashland, greedy, propulsion, medical bay, head, discover, falter, truth, strong. Okay. Okay. So we're gonna... So they get on board. And... They start taking readings on board. They start taking readings on board. And, it'd be a day, right? So let's have a day, let's have her do a roll. See what's up. Electronics, engineering, or would it be Dell? Dell's the sensor guy. So let's have him do. Again, doesn't matter, electronics, computer are both the same. I'd say electronics. Okay, not great. Yeah, not great. Let's see what a -2 is. A simple default no answer. It's a weird thing for... So what is he checking for that we're going to get a no answer to? He's trying to determine... Yeah, I don't know what he'd be... I don't know why I would roll for that. So let's ignore that roll of... So basically he's trying to get a reading like, he... Okay, here we go. He's like, okay, yeah, we're getting into the ship. He's like, honestly, life support seems like it's okay. Getting temperature readings that are, survivable. It's not like it's a deep freeze. The air recycling seems off. So like we got O2 levels that aren't great, but, I think if we can figure that out, we might be in business in terms of not needing suits. But he tries to get into the ship security and it's locked out. So he's trying to let me just get the black box kind of thing for the ship and see if we can get some info about what's going on. And that's what he's locked out of. He's like, oh, that's interesting. I've got the Leyland Okuda universal password and for some reason I can't get in. And Tom's like, really? That seems impossible. And Dell's like, yeah, that should be impossible. And then Tom's like, let me try my captain clearance. And Dell's like, sure thing, buddy. It's it's great. He's not thinking this because he's an android. I'm thinking it's like, buddy, it's great that you think your captain password is gonna be better than my secret conspiracy android corporate all-encompassing password, but you give it a shot, buddy. And of course it doesn't work. So he's like, huh. Tom, with all the insight of a rotting pumpkin's like, that should have worked and it didn't. And that's strange. So anyway, Tom, still useless. So he's like, okay, well, let's start figuring things out. Let's see if, like, Ade, do you want to see if you can check on the air recycling? Maybe we can get the life support fully up and running. We need to figure out what happened with the rest of the crew. And like, okay. Let's see, falter too strong, propulsion, medical bay. Catastrophe. Hostage situation. Something going on. Okay. All right, let's see how this works. This might be a terrible idea, but let's see how it works. So they're like, yeah, Ade starts going to, I don't even know where that would be. Stateroom, block, bridge, elevator, cargo. I don't know where that kind of stuff is. I don't know if I really have a space for it. But anyway, but she goes and she starts to try and work that out. And, Tom's like, all right, well, maybe we can get to the bridge and maybe we can override whatever and get the black box information from there more directly. And they're like, okay. So Tom and Dell start to make their move toward the bridge, which is going to be, going down to the elevator, popping up here, and then making their way up. And then he's like, JM and May, why don't you sweep the ship and see if you can get any idea of, where the crew is. And they're like, Roger. Okay, we'll do that. So this might be a little bit of a shorter session. Because I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to do this. So they start to try and get into the systems from the bridge. Dea, we're going to have her do, and can remember it was like a 7. It was a pretty easy check. We'll have mechanical. So she's got an effective 2. Because it was supposed to be a 7, not an 8. So what we're going to do is we're going to... Yes. Okay, so she gets the recyclers back up and running. And, she's like, okay, Captain, again, simple process. I'm not sure why it wasn't taken care of. But, give it like 15 minutes, should scrub the air, and we should be good to go with taking our helmets off. And, Tom's like, great, thanks, Adea. Good to hear it. In the meantime, JM and May start sweeping. They sort of, while Adea's repairing, they sweep, most of the, I don't know if this is the lower deck. We'll call it the lower deck. And they notice that, like, Cargo 3 has actually been isolated. Like, the hull doors came down and closed off the they closed up. Well, let's do this. They start doing a quick sweep, so they just, they go by, it's not like they like really look at the doors. They just know it's okay. That's locked off. So I think once, that's part of why life support's mostly okay. It's because the emergency doors did shut down. And, they make a sweep. No sign of the crew down here. They finally get upstairs. And it says medical bay here, but instead of medical bay, we're going to have it be the hypersleep chamber. So the hypersleep chamber like the crew lounge kind of stuff, there's signs of like meals that are sort of rotting on the table, like somebody was in mid-meal, like there's like half a cup of coffee that's now obviously ice cold, but like, so it was clear that whatever happened, it was in the middle of something, it was just in the middle of routine. And eventually they make their way around to the hypersleep chamber, and what they see is in the pods the crew. The crew are all in their hypersleep chambers, and they're all dead. And it's clear, like, once they were in their hypersleep chamber, somebody like ripped out part of the wiring and just wrecked each pod, killing the person inside. So, May's like, Tom, Dell, we found the crew, sadly they're all dead, but it looks like they were murdered in their hypersleep pods. And they're like, wait, what? And he's like, yeah, I don't know how exactly this worked, but like, I don't know why they did it, but they got into their pods and then somebody sabotaged every single one after they were in, and it killed them all. And they're like, holy shit, all right. And they're like, okay. Are they having any luck getting into the black box? Let's do an electronics. No, we've already done the roll. They're getting locked out. They weren't able to do it. Would we do another? Nah, let's not do another roll. They're like, yeah, no, we're not having any luck getting, readouts on what happened beforehand. And then, you know what? Actually, let us do I keep seeing that little X pop. Okay, there we go. He's like, you know what? Let's do an electronics roll. Okay, because what he's not having luck getting into the security logs, but what he is starting to realize is that the protocols were changed to make sure nobody could get in. Like, this is a deliberate effect to lock people out. And he's like, shit, okay, so the hypersleep chambers were sabotaged to kill everybody inside. The security logs have been sabotaged so that people can't see what happened. Like, what's going on here? And they are looking around some of the records they can get to. And, like, hey, they call back. They call back to the ship. Hey, Doc, bring up the medical personnel records for the Lady Luck. And they're like, okay. And he's like, tell me, what were the crew numbers? What, give me some basic info. And she's like, well, it's kind of set up like us. You got 6 crew members and a Leyland Akuda android. And they're like, okay. And they're like, perfect, thanks. And, May's like, we've only accounted for the 6 crew members. There's no sign of the android. And they're like, huh, all right. And so it's like, okay, priority 1, we got to go figure out where this android is. And so they start doing a sweep of the ship. And when they've eventually, they can't find him anywhere on the upper deck. When they finally get to the lower deck, they sort of, lock off Cargo 3 and they open the door. And when they open the door, they see Can I copy and paste? We'll name this one. Gotta figure out how to do this. They see Dell 2. They see the Lady Luck's android sort of in like a sleep stasis, tethered but floating because there's no gravity in this. I guess there would be. If there's gravity on the ship, there's gravity here. So, but still kind of like in the... He had been locked in when the hole slammed shut. For whatever reason, he was locked in and gone into like a power saving mode. And Del and May start to approach him. And they're like, he's, we found Del 2. He's in a power saving mode. He was inside the damaged cargo bay. And as they approach, maybe his sensors go on and his eyes open and he wakes from his power saving stasis. And that's where we'll fade to black. So there we go. So yeah, we've gotten onto the Lady Luck. We've found out that some weird shit happened. The crew was murdered in their hypersleep chambers. Their version of Del 2, was trapped in the damaged cargo bay. And we don't really know why. So yeah, this was, again, it was good to get back to this. Like I always say, like this was never meant to be like a solo RPG thing, but it's always fun to give this a shot. I've said this before as well. Like this has gone on way longer than I expected. But that's a good thing. If it were boring, I'd be like, okay, let's just wrap this up and go home. But I really enjoyed playing this out for the long haul. It's been a lot of fun. But yeah, I don't know what's gonna happen. Yeah, but this was a lot of fun. So anyway, we'll pick this up the next time that we need a solo RPG session, when we can't get everybody together and we can't work stuff out. The last couple times, like we almost had 2 of us get together this week. We almost had a full session, and then we almost had 2 of us get together, and then so that's why it's sort of like this is a little coming in hot, because it's we've been actually decent about getting at least 2 of us on the mic, which is again always a minimum preferred to me doing solo stuff. So thanks again for checking this out. If you're watching this on YouTube, you've already found our channel. Like, subscribe, click the notification bells, do all that stuff if you want. If you prefer audio versions of this, our actual plays and some of our podcast discussions, search for Black Lodge Trivia Night wherever you get your audio. We should show up on your podcast software. We've got a Discord if you want to jump in, talk about RPGs, CRPGs. Otherwise, we appreciate everybody who checks this stuff out as always, and we'll definitely be back with more. Just not sure when it'll be Hostile, but hopefully it'll be more, at the time of this recording, more Pathfinder, Season of Ghosts. That would be ideal because that's been a lot of fun. Or yeah, maybe more Hostile. Who knows? Summer can be a busy time in terms of trying to schedule because people go on vacations, but it's turning out like the entire year is tough to schedule. So we'll see how it goes. But otherwise, thanks again for checking this out. Take care. Talk to you soon. Bye-bye. The in-session music was provided by Tabletop RPG Music and composed by Ian Fisher. You can find the Patreon at www.patreon.com/tabletop RPG music. That's all one word.